Hello there, my name is Ismas and welcome to Blender 2.8 quick tutorials, and today we're going to be looking at how to make a quick smoke simulation in Blender 2.8, and I think this can also work in other versions of Blender, later versions of Blender, but since we're looking at 2.8, we're going to be using this. So to get a quick smoke simulation, just hit F3 on your keyboard to open up the search function and type in quick. This will bring up all these quick simulations you can perform in Blender, and so we're going for smoke, so let's just click on that. Make sure you have a mesh selected, otherwise you get this error here. So select the cube and then F3, then quick smoke, and you can see it will set up a domain and then a source for the smoke, which would be, if you go in under the physics tab here, you see this is a smoke object with a type of flow. This is a smoke object with a type of domain. This is just the boundaries of your smoke, so your smoke can go outside of these boundaries. The reason why they do it that way is that if they made it very open, and it will really take a lot of time to simulate, because this is a very open world setting. So you have to set these boundaries using the domain type, smoke object type, just to make sure that your simulation is very small. And also the domain comes with your smoke settings, and this smoke object flow comes with your kind of flow source, your source of smoke settings. So if we hit space on your keyboard, you can see that the smoke starts rendering and simulating, and yeah, you're ready to go. But the problem is that we are currently in Eevee, and if we go to rendered settings and hit play, you see that no smoke will be rendered if you're trying to use the Eevee render engine. But if you go to cycles, you can see that the smoke is there. Now let's go to the shading tab here so that we can see the lighting and everything. So if you go to render here, you can see the smoke is rendering in cycles, but it's not rendering in Eevee. Let me switch back to Eevee here. The reason why it's not rendering in Eevee and rendering in cycles is because in cycles by default the volumetric setting is always enabled, but in Eevee it's not. So if you want to render things that need volumetric calculations, you need to enable that under render settings, and then check volumetrics. You can see that we have that rendered here, but the problem is that the smoke is not very bright, and because our background is gray, it's blending in with our smoke, and we can't really see that clearly. So what we can do is go under the world settings and change the background color to a darker color, so that we have some contrast between our smoke and our background. The other thing is, if you want to make this a little bit more pronounced, you need to change the light, because the light also affects the smoke. If you don't have a light, you just be seeing this black surface. So you need a light in your scene to be able to see the smoke. Let's hit space again so that we can simulate again. I'm also going to subdivide this workspace, this area here, so that I have a timeline and have control over my playback buttons. So let's play this back. Another thing you have to notice is that if you try simulating and it doesn't work, it may be because you started the simulation while your timeline indicator was not at the 0 mark. So you can hit play, let it simulate. You can see it's already paused and it's not simulating. Let it play back to the end of your timeline, and then at the beginning the simulation will kick in and start simulating. So yeah, that's if the simulation is not working. The problem is that our smoke source is too big right now, so I'm just going to select it and then scale it down a bit so that we get a smaller source of smoke. You can see how that looks. Another thing, we want to have a stronger source of light so that this is more pronounced, the smoke comes out more pronounced. So let's select the light. I'll go to the light settings and change the light type from point to sun. That will give us a more brighter smoke, and because a sun is more powerful than the point light we have. Yes, so if you select the domain and you are in the shading tab, you will see that the quick smoke feature also gives you some shading for the smoke, because if you don't have any materials for the smoke, let's try deleting this, the smoke will not render. So you need to have a smoke shader, and the smoke shader uses a volume shader fed into the volume material, the volume output or input for the material output. So if we add a mesh here and add a new material, you will see that normal materials have the shader fed into the surface instead of the volume, but because this uses volumetrics, we need to the domain feeds that into the volumetric or the volume output input. So this is smoke, but it's not really that entertaining or that interesting. So let's add some interesting features to it. So if you hit Shift A, let me switch on my shortcuts here, dog them to the right, so that you can see them. So if we add a force field, let's add a wind, so that we can make our smoke a little bit more interesting. You can see how it's affecting the smoke. Let's also add some strength to that, something like that. You can see how that is working. The other thing you will notice that my smoke is very low resolution because of the resolution subdivision in ours for our domain. So if you want to increase the resolution of your smoke, you just increase the subdivisions there, but it will also take a little bit more time. But because this I want to keep this tutorial quite simple and fast, I'm just going to change this back to 32 so that our playback is more smooth, as you can see there. So from there, this is simply smoke, but if you wanted to make something like real fire, you don't have to change any setting here. What you have to play with is the material setup you have here. So it would be lengthy to do a full material setup for the smoke, so for the fire. So what I'm going to do is go and this is a quick tip. If you want to get for any material you want, you can just go to Google and search for that material setup. So what I did, I went to Google and searched for Blender smoke node setup, and Google gave me results of other people who have done smoke simulations and shared screenshots for what node setup they did. I also went to images instead of all, so that I can look at screenshots instead of just reading through text. So I think this was an interesting smoke, as you can see here. And another thing I again have to mention that they used more subdivisions. That's why you see that their simulation looks more realistic than what we are going to have. And I think they also were using cycles, which is more powerful than Eevee, and gives you more realistic results than cycles, but it takes a lot of time for that, and I don't want to have this tutorial go on forever. So but if you change to cycles, you can see you have better results, but they take a little bit of time to render, and also computer intensive, and since I'm recording while I'm doing this, I don't want that to be the case. So let's just use Eevee and try to copy the material setup this person did, and see the kind of results they have. I'm also going to be explaining the different nodes that you see here, so that you get something from it. Otherwise, you can just go to Google and copy this directly. I've saved this image, so I'll just drag this. Also, let me change this to image editor so that I can have that node set up on my screen. So just drag this there. Now we have our node set up. Let me pause there for a second so that you can look at the node setup, and I'll be explaining step by step what nodes are that we are using here. Okay, so this is the setup we have. You can see they start with the material output. Obviously, you need that to have to output any shader, and yeah, so let's get the same setup here. Try to get the same setup here. So I'm going to delete the principal shader, and that will also disable the material, the smoke here, because we don't have any volume to calculate the volumetric from. So let's follow the same setup. We'll start from right to left instead of left to right, because we want to have something to preview as we do this setup. If you start from left to right, you won't be previewing the results directly here. So let's start with the add shader. So Shift A, shader, add shader, feed that to the volumetric. You won't see anything because again we don't have any volume to calculate, any volume shader to calculate the volumetric. So let's go with the absorption and the scatter. So shader, volume, let's start with absorption. So if you feed this directly into the volume, you can see we just get this black volume thing. And if we add shader, absorption, we get absorption, shader, scatter, we get that. So these two, one will render the absorption of the volume and the other will render the scatter. So you can look that up what that means, but I want to keep this very short, so I'll just know that one renders absorption and you need these two to get this working. So let's feed this and this in, then connect this to the volume. So now here we have this attribute node that is being fed into these nodes here. So if we play back, right now you don't see anything because this absorption is just rendering the entire cube as a volume, and this scatter is also doing the same. So we need to tell this domain where the actual smoke is, because it's just considering the entire cube as the smoke. So I will use this attribute here under input attribute to tell the volume where the smoke simulation is. So then we can connect this into the density. Connect this into the density of the volume of the absorption and the density of the scatter. The problem is that this attribute is just there; it doesn't know what to fetch the density from. So if you select the domain and go to the physics settings, this is physics settings. Yeah, you can see we have different settings here, or different attributes, and you can use these attributes inside your materials by selecting, by adding the name of the attribute you want to use directly as the name of the attribute here. So if you want to use resolution subdivision, you would type in resolution divisions, and that attribute will be used to calculate whatever you want to calculate for your shader. So not every attribute you see here can be used for the volume settings. So you can go and you can go to Blender or Google and search for smoke attributes, and you will land into this documentation. So if you go to Google and search for smoke attributes, Blender smoke attributes, you should be able to find the documentation for the different attributes that are accessible for the shader to use. For the shader to use. So you can see we have vertex color, density, color, temperature, flame, and other attributes. So yeah, these are available to you, and so what you'll be doing is that you'll be asking this attribute node to fetch the values directly from your physics settings and use them in your shader. So the attribute this person used was density, so we can find it here. You can see it's there, and for some reason, I don't know if this is a bug or what, but if you go to the documentation This is supposed to be case sensitive. So if it says capital D here and you use a small d here, it won't work. But for some reason, it works the other way around. So if we copy density here, because this is the attribute here, paste it here. Let's go to cycles and see if this is rendering. You see, it's not rendering, and it's not rendering in Eevee as well. But if we just type in density, you can see how that is working now. So this is sensitive, but it doesn't match the naming convention that he was used here. So you would expect that you just type in exactly what the name that is here, using the case sensitive name that is here. Copy that and paste it here. It doesn't work, but if you try writing it using small letters, it works. So I don't know how they did it there. Maybe it's a bug or not, I don't know. But yeah, so when you type in the name here, you're just fetching the value being used in the physics simulation here. And so right now it would be that value. And you can see that is what this person was doing this as well. So to make this more pronounced, he added the multiply node to increase the intensity or the power of the density here. So he just added a convert math node, change the operation to multiply, and use the value here to increase or decrease the intensity there. So at 80 you can see it's a bit faded, and at maybe 1, so that's what you get there. So let's go for the same values that as he did, and we can also go to the cycle settings, and you can see that the volume is also being rendered as well there. So then we can use this as he did here to feed the density of the absorption and the density of the scatter. Maybe this is too powerful. Let's try something 3, something like that. So another area, so this is just rendering the volume, so we want to add some color to this, and so let's copy this setup here. So emission is just emitting the color of the material. So just duplicate Shift A, shader, emission. If you feed this directly into the volume, you won't get anything good. So we need to add this to this. So using the add shader, like they did here. So let's duplicate this, connect this to the bottom, and you can change the color of the node. You can change the color of your material directly like that, your smoke directly like that. But the problem is that it's shading the entire volume, which we don't want. So we need again to use another attribute. This person used frame, so let's see how that would work out. So again, let's bring in the attribute. So I'll just copy this. Again, if you go to the physics settings, you will find the frame settings. Is it there? So let's see. Let's find frames. We have okay, because I tried using this flame attribute when I was testing this tutorial, and it wasn't working. So I thought maybe it was a bug, but I think because this is a new version of Blender, maybe they changed and removed the flame attribute, because I'm not seeing it there, and it's now maybe a group. I don't know exactly how I think they changed it so you can't use this flame attribute anymore. So let's go back to this, and I think this documentation is for a previous version of Blender. That's why some of the things are not working as they're supposed to do. But let's first try out and see how this goes. So if we use the flame attribute as they did use it, and multiply the results with black body. So we have a black body setting here. I think I did see that. So if we go and I did see a black body setting somewhere. Flame, viscosity, shade, recognition, smoke. There was a black body settings. I saw it when I was testing this, but I can't find that. So let's try adding the black body. If it's not working, how we can remove it and change it a bit. So, oh, actually, I think this is a, sorry, this is not an attribute. This is a node within Blender. So Shift A, input, black body. It's supposed to be somewhere here. Oh, let's just search it. Black. It should be something. We don't need it. So since I'm not finding it, I'll just add a multiply, convert, multiply. Actually, it's here. Black body is under convert black body. I don't know why it didn't come up when we were searching. So let's feed that in there and feed this into the color and see how that works. Now we can add the multiply math node, change this to let's try using 3000 as they did and see if there is any good result. There isn't a lot of difference, I'm saying. So let's try 1000. Okay. Let's also add another color ramp here. Convert color ramp. These are self-explanatory, and so black body is just a physics property that gives you the color of an object depending on its temperature. So if it's too hot, it will be red hot. If it's cold, it will be in a range of blue and something like that. So let's multiply the factor of this frame into flame into multiply this by whatever value he has, 16, multiply, and then use this as the emission strength. So it's cutting out all the area we had here. So I think it's not doing any effect. Let's try changing the color here, because I think this is supposed to be the color. So this is supposed to be give this the color. But let me just delete this and add a color ramp that we can visually see everything. So let's do this. We still, if we remove the strength, you can see how this is affecting the color. But the problem is, I think this attribute here doesn't exist anymore. So let's try density, and see how that affects this. And let's give this a bit more power by adding a math node. Change this to multiply. Let's see this. Make sure everything else is set up correctly. So density is not working as well. I should have left the the example I was working this on, and don't close it because I think there are some differences. Anyway, you can look at because this is 2.8, a lot of things have changed, and maybe some nodes may look different. So instead of just searching for Blender smoke simulation nodes, I search for Blender 2.8 smoke node setup so that they have the same nodes you have. So let's look at this guy here. They have density, have color. So try copying this guy and see. Maybe let me do that, because if anyone, let's try this again using this node setup. So I'll just copy this. So if you don't find this interesting, you can just watch another video, because yeah, the main part of the tutorial, creating quick smoke, I already did that, and this is no longer a quick tutorial. It's now it has turned into experimentation. So let's see. So he starts out with the add shader. It's not adding. It doesn't have anything here. Will this work? Let's see. He starts out with a volume scatter and a volume scatter. So shader and absorption, shader add, again. You can just copy. You don't have to watch this. You can just go to Google and search for that, and copy the node setup they have. The reason I would recommend you to watch this is that sometimes I'm going to be explaining some of the nodes are they using here if you don't know what they are. So they have the add and the add, multiplying this. We already have these two. Sorry, this is supposed to be volume scatter, shader volume scatter. Connect that to the bottom node. Actually, this is supposed to be at the top. And now we need an attribute, input attribute, and this is going to be the color. So the color would be fed into the color, and also fed into the color of this here. You can see that we are starting to get some details. Because if we don't have this, you see how this is a bit flat. Now this is giving us some information there inside there. So let's see what else did they add. Then they use the density node, multiply that, I think, to make it more intense. That's why they multiplied it. So they multiply the factor by 5 and fed that into the volume absorption density and the volume scatter density. Okay, so this is, I think, just setting up the smoke to look like smoke. That's why we don't have any information fed into this, because this here would be your color node. So let's try setting that up. So if we add another shader here, add shader, then we would need an emission shader, color shader, emission. So this would be the node that gives you the color of your material, of your smoke or fire. So then you would use attributes like color, and then we can add maybe a color ramp. Let's play around with the colors and see if we'll get anything good here. So don't touch the black. So let's put a node before here. So let's make this white and see if we change this to a different color. Yes, so now we are starting to play around with the color. But this is a bit blocky, so let's try density and see if that will give us anything different. What about using factor? Is factor? You can always come in here to the material settings, to the domain settings, physics settings, and look at the different attributes you can try out. So let's try smoke and see if that would give us anything. If you see a color rendering outside here, any color in whatever you after adding an attribute, it means that attribute is accessible. If you add an attribute, let's say resolution division, or let's try time scale, and if nothing renders, space. Okay, I think this is also accessible. So let's try border collision, because I think that shouldn't be accessible. Am I doing this right? Let me see. You know, before I embarrass myself, let me just end this here, because instead of being a quick tutorial, it turned into a 7-hour tutorial. So thank you for watching. I hope everyone's ended at the 6 mark minutes of this video.